visual for your trimming?
No,
Okay.
no. All right, Casey, here we are, man. Football is back. We are live. The Meltdown Show is live again. It feels good.
It feels
Welcome to
so
college
good.
football.
Welcome to college football. I consumed so much college football this weekend and this week.
Wow.
We got like 5 days in a row of college football, and it was amazing.
Yeah, it actually felt like I'd watched football for a solid month before the
Hmm.
Aggies ever kicked off
Yeah.
against Kent State, which we are going to spend a lot of time talking about tonight because we have a football game. We had a football game, and we had a victory.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
so,
If
first
you're
things
new,
first,
yeah. Victory Scotch.
victory scotch. This is what we do.
That's what we
Meltdown
do.
Show, by the way, is undefeated. Okay, so we've never had to drink trash bourbon after a defeat. No, tonight it's for me it's Lagavulin, 16 go to. How about for you?
Abalur, Abandad, Abanad. I don't know how to say it. I don't know. Some weird Scottish
No,
word. Anyway,
whatever it is,
delicious.
enjoy.
Enjoy.
To the Aggies, 41-10 over the Kent State Flashes.
I have
What?
no idea.
No
Nobody knows.
worries. And it was a long off season. It was an off season full of a lot of questions about this football team because there's a lot of new parts that the team was breaking in that Coach Fisher had to work with through spring ball and fall camp. And on Saturday, we got our first look. So, I'm curious what you expected going into that game and what you saw that maybe you were hoping to see, or on the other side, what really surprised you.
Boy, that's a tough one to nail down because the game felt so strange for 2.5 quarters, right? Uh, on the one hand, you liked what you were seeing from Haynes King, but the results weren't showing up on the scoreboard. It was very frustrating. But going back to what we expected, we talked about this at the end of last year as we were kind of saying farewell to Kellen Mond, and we really expected Haynes King to be the starting quarterback at that point. It was not a very well kept secret, although from all accounts, Zach Calzada uh, put in a hell of a spring and a hell of a fall to narrow that gap. But in the end, Haynes King wins out, and we said at the end of last season that we thought you would see more taking off the run to take easy yards, okay, in the scramble game. We would see more calculated risk throwing downfield, a little bit more decisiveness in the pocket than we were used to seeing from Kellen Mond. And I think we got exactly that. Um, I think that was the least surprising part of the night for me. We got exactly what I thought we were going to see from Haynes King, and maybe even more in terms of pocket presence. From the offensive line, we were replacing what, four starters, and technically, we were saying all offseason, Layden Robinson, that guy, even though he wasn't a starter last year, to us it felt like we're really only having to replace three key pieces. Um, but I frankly was expecting or hoping for a little bit more out of the offensive line. Um, Live, it felt like they were pretty good. We made some holes in the running game, but inconsistent. But I would say on rewatch, I actually felt like they performed better than it seemed like in real time. So, overall, I was very pleased. And obviously, after the full time expired, right? I don't know how you could be upset with a 31-point victory covering the spread and, uh, you know, seeing some good things out of your freshman quarterback.
Yeah, look, the spread was 29, and there were a lot of people that were really uncomfortable with that number because of all the new pieces, like we said, a new quarterback
Myself
making his first
included.
start. Yep.
Yeah.
And you heard that throughout the week. And Kent State presented some really unique problems. I don't know if we'll get into that or not. But I do want, we won by 31 with a really bad beat, okay, towards the end. But, the reality is Kent State wouldn't have had those opportunities to come back and cover that spread if we had taken care of some business. And I think that's actually what I expected going in. I think I thought that the quarterback would play well, that the offensive line would do okay against that level of an opponent. I certainly expected them to play better than the experienced line did against Vanderbilt last year in the opener. I expected more this time around, based on what Coach Fisher was talking about.
Yeah.
But I also expected our defense to struggle with what Kent State was going to present. That was a really prolific offense with 7 returning starters, an offense that didn't play a ton of games last year, but averaged well over 600 yards a game
Hmm.
when they did play. And experienced quarterback, a fast quarterback, a guy who's got some NFL potential. So I thought they would move the ball, but I also thought Elko's defense would do what they did, which was prevent that team from scoring points at the pace they're used to.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was going to be one of those games where you saw a lot of really good stuff. Nobody was going to be satisfied, but we would win easily. That's what happened, right? And I do want to go back to something you said about the O line, because when you do watch them on replay, uh, it looked so much better than it did live. And one of the things I actually thought is that the O line outplayed our running backs at times. And, I know that's really kind of crazy to say, because you look at the numbers that Spiller had, you look at what, Achane did, particularly late with the long run. Anais had a couple nice runs. But man, when you watch the replay and you watch these plays over and over and over again, there was a lot more meat on that bone for those guys. And you could tell they were a little rusty, trusting the offensive line to do what they were supposed to do. Spiller created some plays, but he created some yardage and some plays by deviating from where he could have been or should have been when the blocking was there for a 15 to 20-yard run. He salvaged 7, 8, 9, 10, but the hole was there for a big one. And that's what I saw when I watched it. I thought that was really interesting, and it's something I expect to get better. I don't know. What do you think?
I would agree with that. Because we're not used to seeing that from Spiller, right? Like once the running game really got going last year, he was an incredibly efficient back in terms of
Yes.
getting what was there. And then he had that added dimension of way more than we appreciate, I think, as a fan base, the number of times he would turn a -1 or no gain into 2 or 3 yards. And that's like hidden yardage on the stat sheet, right? We're just
Right.
he's able to scrap out something when nothing was there and keep you a little bit more on schedule. Um, I would say I was mildly disappointed with A-Chain in that regard, more so than Spiller. Uh, I think we were waiting all off season for a guy like A-Chain to get more than garbage time carries and really get in the rotation early and think, okay, he's going to be a massive impact. And I still think that's the case, but I think he was maybe exposed a little bit in terms of not having the patience and vision that we've come to expect from Spiller, and therefore not getting as many yards when you had to be a little bit more patient and see like a second lane open up when maybe the first one
Right.
wasn't there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that speed he possesses, man, once he's through the hole, he's gone. And, that works really well when you have a defense that's softened up.
Hmm.
And that, A-Chain actually mentioned that in the post game presser, that he's pretty comfortable with the rotation, that he feels like the coaches have a plan in a game of how to maximize both of these backs' capabilities. And so I wouldn't expect A-Chain to play a lot at the beginning of a football game or get in the mix early. It really sounds like this is the plan, that Isaiah's going to come out and set the tone. He's going to wear these defenses down, punish them by scrapping out those yards. And when they're tired and they got their hands on their hips, here comes this kid with world class speed, and a lot of slippery ability, even in the hole, to really just take over a game and slam the door shut. I mean, he's basically he's somewhere between a middle relief man and a closer. He comes in and really makes sure that the other team has no shot, and we've seen him do it now 2 games in a row. Certainly did it the other night. So I think that's how it's going to be, and it'll be interesting to see who actually gives Spiller a breather as the season goes on. It could be some of these other guys. It could be Crownover. It could be um,
Could be
shoot,
LJ Johnson. Yeah,
L.J. Johnson, right? Another Johnson. We've got so many of these guys on the
I
team,
know.
so it's hard to keep everybody straight. But yeah, so look, I mean, those were some of the things we expected, some of the things that we saw in the replay, but we really do need to talk more about what Haynes King did on the field. And you talked a lot about pocket presence. What did you see there? There was several plays that really stood out in that regard, and you pointed them out on our Twitter account all week.
Yeah, and if you go to our Twitter account, we'll post a link and everything. I've got some gifts to some of my favorite plays from the weekend, but um, a pocket presence well beyond what you would expect from a kid making his first start as a, we'll call it a redshirt freshman, I guess, kind of, but
COVID freshman.
COVID freshman. Uh, Frankly, things that we've been frustrated about a little bit with Kellen Mond, that Kellen got so much better at as a senior, but still wasn't quite, what we had hoped to see. Haynes has come out and he's at least there or beyond it already in game one. I mean, dude, working up into the pocket, keeping his eyes downfield, feeling pressure, and not letting it rattle him. I won't say it never got to him. I thought there were a couple of throws that he airmailed a little bit because a guy was in his face. The one where Chapman, where they missed the pass interference. The one to Spiller out on the sideline. There, a guy came free just as he was getting ready to hit Spiller for a big gain over there, and he kind of sails it. But God, the guy just he moved around. He sensed pressure. He's got great feet. Um,
Yes. Yeah, the
my
footwork was spectacular.
Yeah. And we saw, everyone wanted to make the Johnny comparisons as soon as they saw the crazy one where you reverse field like 2 times and goes to get a first down. Um, you
Man,
know,
I'm going to stop you right there because
yeah.
that play, what the thing that was most interesting to me about that play was actually not the crazy run that he made. It was the initial attempt to take off and get upfield because there was some pressure coming. And he I think it was a third down, if I remember right, third and pretty long. And he saw a lane up the middle, and he actually didn't even hesitate. He was going.
Hmm.
What actually tripped him up was he ran into his own lineman.
Yeah.
I think into the backside of Aggie, right, and caused him to kind of bounce back into the pocket, and that produced the crazy run. But it was what was most impressive to me was just no hesitance to take off and go pick up that first down and keep the chains moving. It wasn't the crazy run; it was just the initial decision, and we actually saw a lot of really good decisions in the pocket. There was the really bad interception. Chapman was running, it looked like a little either a stop route or a quick comeback. We didn't really get a good review. We didn't get any good reviews, replays all night from that
Yeah.
crew. So we don't know exactly what happened, but that was not a good decision to throw that football. But that was few and far between. I loved the one where he stepped up in the pocket, made a little move to get up into the pocket, and then perfectly placed ball on a little drag route to, I think it was a nice, if I remember, or was it Chase Lane?
So Chase Lane, the
It
big
was
third
Chase
down
Lane.
early in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just such a natural play
Yeah.
for him. And, the other part to his game was when he did get out of the pocket. We talked about this since Bama last year. Like Haynes, the secret to Haynes running a football is that he runs to attack a defense.
Hmm.
And he gets out of the pocket and he's instantly turned upfield and putting pressure on the defense to make a decision, but he's always ready to throw the football at the same time. without slowing down, without looking
Yeah.
indecisive, right? And I don't want to keep during this season going back and comparing to the previous guy because he did a lot of good things for us. But to get to the next level, these are the kinds of things that a quarterback can bring to the table that will defeat, the kinds of defenses that are elite. Because there's a handful of plays that got to be made in a game, and a guy like this with this kind of capability and this kind of poise can make those plays and can make enough to be the difference. When you're going elite on elite, right?
Yeah.
That's who can put you over the top.
And that's the
It's gonna
kind of guy that Bama's had the last few years.
right,
And it's what we've talked about at the end of the season and even after the Alabama game to a certain extent, that that's the kind of guy you need to raise your ceiling.
right.
Now can we it'll raise your ceiling but maybe lower your floor while that guy is a first year starter in a
That's
really
right.
hard league. Um, so and we said we'll see more calculated risks. Um, and with that, it's probably going to come more mistakes. I just wonder, the big story after the weekend is that he threw 3 picks, and that's certainly what the stat sheet says. But when you watch that game, do you see a guy that is going to throw 3 or 4 touchdowns, but also 2 or 3 picks every week?
Yeah, well, I don't because I mean it's certainly possible, but I don't think he's going to throw that many. I think we saw 2 tipped balls, right? We saw a mistake in the flat. I think it was a mistake from Whittermeyer, and I think Fisher made some reference to that maybe somebody shouldn't have been in that space, and that was
Mm.
about as nice of a way as he could have said that in his press conference. I think it was yesterday. And then the second one, it gets a guy gets a paw up at the line of scrimmage. We've had plenty of conversation about whether that ball was late, whether it was going to be on time,
Yeah.
whether it was open. We don't have enough view of the field from ESPNU to make that call, but
Yeah.
it looked good, and I think I liked the footwork on that play. I liked the read. Um, and I liked the decisiveness to throw the football. And whether it was going to be on point or not, who knows? But like we said, we saw a lot from Haynes King that has us excited, and I think Aggie fans are really going to enjoy watching him play this year. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I don't know where
So
if you want to go to defense next, or I think we kind of covered
yeah,
most of
look, I
how we
think we
feel
should.
about it.
I do think we should spend a little bit of time on the defense, and then let's take a journey around college football. But I saw some comments out there that people were disappointed in the defense. I certainly, they think they could have played better. But again, based on what Kent State was trying to do and what they like to do to be successful, I thought the defense actually played pretty well. It was interesting to hear some comments about the defensive line from the coach about wanting to see more physicality from them. I thought that was fascinating. We were missing some guys. We saw a lot of young guys come in and make an impact. Fadil Diggs, Shamar Turner. So uh, there was a lot to like there. I think we gave up too many yards to the quarterback because some of those other rushing yards you see they don't happen if you limit that quarterback on those scrambles on those third and longs and you stop drives.
Right. You keep them off
So
schedule.
right.
Yeah.
Uh, the linebackers in this game was interesting. They were asked to do something. I don't think they're really going to be asked to do much this season against a lot of SEC offenses. And we were blitzing corners and even safeties at times based on the alignment. We were trying to force the quarterback to make these decisions that he wasn't comfortable making. And for the most part, it worked. Sometimes it didn't, but for the most part, it did. And like I said, really unconventional. And I think it's going to be interesting this next week against Colorado because the way Colorado's offense runs and operates. A lot of single back sets. They're going to try to run at you.
That's not
They're
going to
playing
work.
right into the teeth. They're
Yeah.
playing right into the teeth of what our defense likes. So
And
I
it
think
should
we'll
be
be very
said our
happy.
defense is going to have Clemens back against Colorado. And I
That's
think
right.
that's
And
big.
supposedly Miles Jones,
Okay.
he'll be practicing. He'll be practicing this week. We know that.
So fingers
Um,
crossed. I think that is a
fingers
big
crossed.
upgrade. Although I would hopefully not rush him back because we need him here in a few weeks, big time. So
Absolutely. All right. Well, so look, and that's enough on A&M. There was a lot of action, a lot of big games, a lot of impactful games already in week one. I think we got to start. We got to start with Alabama and
yeah,
Miami. And what the heck, man? What did you see coming out of that one?
man. Well, I should say, and this will be important as we talk about a lot of the other games that come up. Um, I was very much leading into our game and and saying to myself, I'm not going to overreact to any other games as well when it came to teams starting a new quarterback against a supposedly much inferior competition. I'm not going to overreact, good or bad, to what happens in week one, right? That's just kind of the way college football is. So I wasn't going to overreact when it took us 2.5 quarters to really open the floodgates. Um, but, and we saw a lot of that, I would say, across the college football landscape, but we didn't see it in one place, and that was in Alabama.
No, no, we
I mean,
didn't.
the one team in the entire country that was looked like they were in midseason form already, and of course, it's Alabama. So if you
Man,
had any aspirations of saying, "Boy, maybe they'll take a little bit of a step back this year," think maybe that went out the window this weekend.
no, I think you're right. Which you said you didn't want to overreact. Well, this was pretty shocking, to be honest,
Yeah.
because the national championship winning coordinator who was responsible for the Bama dynasty and all of their Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks for the last 20 years, even though he's only been there a couple seasons, is now in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand how Alabama is still good. It
Mm,
didn't make any sense to me,
it didn't make any sense to me either.
but they are good. And, we've got a lot of work to do
Absolutely.
to get ready to go toe to toe with those guys when they come to Kyle Field. And look, nobody should be sitting around going, "Oh shucks, well, we got no shot again." Look, that is the standard, and one
Mm-hmm.
thing that Jimbo Fisher has proven to us since he's been in College Station is that week 1 to week 2 to week 3 to week 4 through the season, his football teams get better. And I think that is going to be the case, and everybody should be excited because of the way our schedule sets up.
I completely agree, and I won't go back too far to Kent State, but I have to say I wanted to point this out. Yes, there were times we were disappointed with some of the new pieces on the offensive line, but this offensive line, full of way less experience, far outperformed the experienced offensive line from week one last year against Vanderbilt. Far
Absolutely.
outperformed.
Absolutely. The talent is undeniable.
Yeah.
So listen, Alabama dominated.
Yeah.
Okay. They dominated a Miami team that, might be middle tier ACC, which is not saying much this year. But
Yeah.
they looked really good and crisp and ready to roll. 11 different guys caught a damn pass from Bryce Young. He's out there throwing dimes. They look ready to roll like they always do. We got to
Yep.
get to that level. And you know what? We'll see. Um, so, like you said, there was really one team that looked like that this go around with a new quarterback and a bunch of new pieces. I would say the next one in line, for me at least, in that category was Ohio State. And Ohio
Mm-hmm.
State kicked off against Minnesota and played really well at times and then played not so well. They allowed Minnesota to hang around and start to make that game interesting before pulling away late. But their new quarterback seemed to struggle quite a bit at times.
And then at times
Same
look
deal.
great.
Yeah,
So it's week one. Now I'm not comparing Minnesota to Kent State. Um, but in some regards, you brought it up. But look, Kent State's a machine. They do what they do. It's a kind of a different animal. Um, anyway, we won't get too bogged in
we won't.
down in that. But Minnesota's the kind of team that is a bad matchup for a team like Ohio State in week one breaking in a new quarterback because of their ability to kind of shorten the game. They had a senior running back that's very good.
Right.
Um, so you expected them to give some trouble, but in the end, I mean, it looked to me like Ohio State was more than they had them overmatched on talent and physical size, and I never really felt like Minnesota was really in it. Um,
They were just in it to make it interesting,
right?
right? Feeding off the home crowd,
Yeah,
it was pretty crazy.
yeah.
Uh, it was a pretty nice atmosphere for the opening weekend. So then let's pivot a little bit. I'm going to run right past Clemson and Georgia, okay?
Uh,
Because that was what it was.
yeah.
I really couldn't tell you which of those two teams is better than the other, to be honest. The whole game pivoted on one play, essentially. And who knows what both those offenses will look like. Especially Georgia, they had a lot of players out, so we won't spend much time on that one. It was a throwback football game, but we did have two teams in the top 10 who had returning quarterbacks and who got a tremendous amount of offseason hype. And both of those football teams looked pretty bad. Okay. And we're going to start with, well, we're just going to go in on Oklahoma. Okay.
Okay,
So,
fine.
Oklahoma at home. At home. It was in their stadium. Okay.
It was in their
Against
stadium.
Tulane. Against Tulane. All right. And Spencer Rattler, the Heisman frontrunner, the vastly improved and uber talented speed defense that we heard about the entire offseason. It was the entire justification for all of these voters putting OU at number 2 or number 1 in the country, right? That this is the year for them. Their first game was not one to be proud of at all. Tulane had the ball with 2 minutes to go, trying to go win that game on OU's side of the field.
And not only that, if you were watching that game, when they recovered that onside kick, you 100% thought they were going to go score a touchdown.
Absolutely.
But the way that game was going, frankly, I was shocked. And I've said it to everyone that would listen this weekend. You said the Tulane got the ball back with 2 minutes left, needing a
2
touchdown.
minutes.
2 minutes. And they did, but they came out and ran that possession as if there was less than 30 seconds left on the clock.
They
And they
absolutely
paid the price
panicked.
for it.
They did. They
Yeah.
did. They could have ran the ball. They could have been patient. They could have milked that clock. They could have really gotten an idea of what they wanted to do. But yeah, they absolutely spit the bit. You could tell it was the moment got too big,
Yeah.
and
Like, oh my
they
God, we
they
might actually do this. And then it just, yeah.
yeah, and a half yard short of
Yeah.
keeping that drive alive, even despite all of that. But
God, two,
you
two
know,
minutes from the 50-yard line in college football is an eternity.
yes,
Yeah.
it's like 5 minutes in the NFL.
Yeah.
It really is. So, but the bottom line is okay. You told me you pumped Oklahoma up based on the Cotton Bowl victory over a depleted Florida team, okay, and sold me a bill of goods based on two things. And now I have one body. After week one, all I have is week one, and neither of those things played out at all. And we saw Oklahoma drop in the AP and the coaches poll, but of all the teams in the top 10, I thought they deserved to fall much further. If you want to base it on results, I thought they should have been in the 7, 8, 9 range. Certainly not didn't deserve to stick around in the top 5. And
Okay.
yeah, I just don't. And here's the other piece of evidence is you saw what the voters did to Iowa State Okay? They punished Iowa State far more for the exact same thing.
Oh, okay. Well, and that's the point I was going to make is I would not call that the exact same thing, actually, but that's just me. I mean, and here's why. All right, Iowa State played an FCS school. Okay, like, I mean, seriously, that, yeah, because I think I said Saturday also, boy, because like I said, I'm not going to overreact to anything going on with these first year quarterbacks, but I will overreact to the
Yes.
veteran Heisman frontrunner, and what happened in Norman. However, that took a pretty furious comeback by Tulane in the fourth quarter to make it that close, and it fell short. I know, it wasn't like that, but it was three scores, wasn't it?
I think you're right. That's fair.
Yeah. Iowa State Iowa State scored 16 points
Yeah.
against an
This
FCS
prolific
school.
offense.
Yes,
Right.
I've heard. I haven't heard about Brock Purdy as much as I've heard about Spencer Rattler, but I've heard plenty about him. And now I'm blanking on his name, but they got a running back too that's returning that people
Is
are
it
pretty high on, huh?
Brees Hall?
Yeah,
Brees?
and you
Brees?
scored 16 points against an FCS school. You had to intercept them on the last drive to seal the game
Yeah.
because you were only up 16-10. I That is worse to me than what happened in Norman.
Okay. That's fine. You want to say it is worse. I'm just putting it in the same category. Okay. You sold me all of this all
Right.
season, and you did it so you could pump them up and get them as high as
Mhm.
possible into these polls. You actually did it. It started last season.
It
Okay.
started last
And it
season,
just
and make no mistake, the pumping up of Iowa State is only so they could pump up Oklahoma.
Yeah, no, I do think there's a lot of that, man. And I
Yeah.
and I think, I think the idea of that just goes back to, man, I hate to say it, but there's just a lot of people in the media who need something to hold on to and hold up against what's going on in the Southeastern Conference. And whether it's Ohio State and backdooring them into the playoff with 6 wins, or trying to lift up Oklahoma as much as possible, they're just grasping at straws there. And I think we saw it. I think we saw it in the voting today. You look at just the way you go through all of the votes in the Associated Press poll, and you see where those voters had these teams.
Mhm.
They're still just holding on way too much to what Oklahoma put out on the field. I just don't think they deserve it. I don't think they deserve it, and it'll be really interesting. They've got uh, some kick them to the curb school they're playing this weekend, but then they've got a test the next couple of weekends after that. So I'm trying to remember who they play off the top of my head, but it's they got Nebraska actually in week 3.
Oh
Um, yeah,
boy,
and they
Nebraska.
go Nebraska, then they go West Virginia, then they go Kansas State, then they go Oklahoma. If Oklahoma, I'm sorry, then they go
Oklahoma State.
Texas.
Oh, Texas. Gotcha.
Texas. Um, Based on what I saw in week 1, I don't think they run that table. Now, if they do, then we're talking, okay?
Yeah.
And then they do it convincingly, okay? Which, by the way, we need to start a convincing win tracker this season, and we can update it every week with the top contenders in college football. We'll be the judge of what's convincing a convincing win or not. Anyway,
Sure.
no, I haven't let it go. All right.
Nor
So that
should
was
you.
some. Okay. Now that was some Big 12 football. There was another game in the Big 12 down in Austin. There was the debut of the national championship assistant coach in Austin, Steve Sarkeesian, and the Horns, okay, taking on ULala, the mighty ULala, the Raging Cajuns. And you know what? They played all right, and that's as
Did
much as
they?
I'm going to say. I thought they
That's
played all
fair
right.
enough. Because to
But
be
they played all
honest,
right.
I watched the first quarter and that was about it.
Yeah.
and they played all right. Okay. I
Yeah, look, and what you just said is really important because I turned on the first quarter. I watched a couple of snaps of this quarterback for the Raging Cajuns, and I thought, nah,
yeah, exactly. He was
that's a big bag
bad.
of nah. He
He
was not
was
good.
bad.
And
Yeah.
I thought, well, if the Raging Cajuns somehow manage to win this game, then I will dance on the grave because that would be hilarious. But it's not going to happen because this guy is trash,
He's
and I just
trash.
didn't waste any more time.
Yeah.
So I don't know what Bijan Robinson did. I heard he had, great first week, whatever. Good for him.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see.
Okay. Yeah.
They got Arkansas this
Whatever.
week.
They do
Week
get
8 Suey.
Arkansas. Boy, Arkansas rescued themselves from
Oh
disaster, didn't they?
boy.
So they went
But
out and laid an
again,
egg.
week 1 with a new quarterback. But good God, it's Rice. It's
Yeah, I
Rice.
know, I know. But they
Yeah.
did. They roared back. They took control of that game and they won that game. So they did what they should have done. I think they actually survived that game easier than Mississippi State did.
Oh yeah,
Who?
Mississippi State had to come back multiple times. I think they had multiple
Yeah.
14-point deficits against Louisiana
Ah,
Tech.
God, I love
Yeah,
Mike Leach.
I love him so much.
I love that guy.
Yeah.
Long live Mike Leach. Okay, as
Hopefully,
long
we
as we
never
beat
have
him
to
by
change our
30.
tune on that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now there was one more game before I want to get to our finale for the college football weekend, and that was Ole Miss and Louisville on Monday night. Uh, Not as entertaining of a game as I was hoping it would be. Again, kind of turned that one
Very
on.
entertaining if you like ejections.
Yes, that's true. If you're a fan of targeting and completely ambiguous, rulings on the field and tossing out players who don't deserve to be, that was your game.
I would like to
It was
meet that fan group.
wow. Yeah, that'd be a nice.
Yeah,
Oh,
all the people
so
that love targeting.
yeah, that was another game. I turned on the game and I watched this quarterback for Louisville run around and do his thing, and thought, yeah, this just isn't going to go the way they
Nope.
wanted to go.
No.
Not tonight. Ole Miss's defense did look better. They looked better, but they didn't look good. They just looked
No.
better. Okay.
Yeah.
And honestly, from an offensive standpoint, I had higher expectations coming into that game for Corral and some of
Yes.
these new players. Um, they're gonna put up 50 or 60 in a few games this year, and
You just hope it's
it'll
not
be an
against
interesting
you.
one. Yeah, you hope it's not you. And I will say this: I kind of want to watch Ole Miss every week. I want to see. I want to see what happens. I want to see what Kiffin does on the sideline. I want to see him throw his hands up.
Hmm.
You know what
I
a
want to see
bit
some
because
dudes hike their leg in the end zone, and I
they got a player named Smoke, right? Isn't his
yeah,
name Smoke?
yeah,
It seems like every year Ole Miss has a player named Smoke. Either Ole Miss or Mississippi State.
right,
Somebody on that team is Smoke. Okay.
yeah.
So I think they just assign one. It's kind of like the 12th man. We assign a 12th man. They look at a guy and they're like, hey, you're Smoke. Congrats. That's your
uh,
role. But
it's like
I have to comment on this, the Lane Kiffin, you know, the ball's in the air, the arms go up. Because I have a
mhm.
theory that Lane Kiffin actually does that about 20 times a game.
And they only show it on television.
They only show it when they actually score. I think he does it all the time. I'd love to actually track that if I could. If I ever go to an Ole Miss game, that's what I'm going to track.
I don't think so. I think Lane Kiffin can actually see 5 seconds into the future.
Just not his own future.
Just his own future. Somebody else's. Yeah.
He can only see other people's futures.
But only
Otherwise,
five
he would have
seconds.
only
Yeah.
seconds. Okay, he can only see 5 seconds into his past. It's like he's not even in the present when it comes to his own capabilities.
Yeah.
All right, that's a lot of games, but man, we got to talk about one game in particular, and that was out in California in the Rose Bowl.
That's
Okay,
right.
where preseason, I hope our coach finally gets it together. Dreams go to die. And for you college football fans, that's like there's like 3 layers to that joke, and I hope you get all of them. Hey, if you do, we got a shirt for you. Maybe a "I bet they would" T-shirt,
Yeah,
which
you can.
you just have to pay like $20 shipping and handling. We'll give you the link. Okay,
He's not kidding. Yeah,
not kidding at all. But that was LSU versus UCLA, the Fighting Kellys, and
man,
LSU got their ass kicked.
they did, and I have to back up for a second because I think. Well, really, you had two tweets of the summer on our Twitter account, but related to this particular game, you said a few weeks ago, if you want to know which college football analysts out there really know what they're talking about, ask them about LSU. And I think you turned out to be dead on with that one.
I'm kind of an idiot savant when it comes to the Twitter.
Yeah. And an unappreciated one we found. But
Yeah,
seriously,
absolutely.
the
Come on,
LSU
people.
hype didn't make any sense. You're talking about a team that's been 5-5, and I understand they have a ton of talent. They're now 2 years removed from a national championship, but that's such a shallow analysis of what has been going on there. And I have to admit, like, I'm afraid of them because of the amount of talent they possess, completely. But what they've shown under Orgeron is that they are a 3 to 4 loss team every year, and that they lose except for
Brady
one.
and Burrow.
Right.
Except for Brady and Burrow, and what was it? 9 guys taken like in the first 2 rounds or something.
Yeah.
I've seen. They
Just
look. They
obscene.
they they absolutely struck gold, and all the things that people questioned about Ed O prior to that season um, are actually playing themselves out ever since that season on a whole nother level.
Right.
The guy doesn't play well with others. He is a hype machine as a head coach. He's not an X's and O's guy.
Hmm.
He's completely reliant throughout his career hiring good assistants. And that's the only thing that's going to make him successful. But the fact that he doesn't work well with others is what causes those assistants, when they smell any kind of success, to get the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah.
Okay. One of them was willing to go be the head coach at Baylor. Okay. All right. A guy who was a world class defensive coordinator decided, I'll go be the head coach at Baylor because it's the best offer I've got at the moment. And I'm even willing to go to an offensive school in an offensive conference and try to make it work. And then the other
What?
guy hightailed it to the NFL as soon as he
Yeah.
could.
And that defensive guy, by the way, when you're at LSU, which at the time top 3 in defensive talent in the entire country, would you say? I mean, you're talking
Easily.
about Alabama,
Easily.
Georgia, and LSU. I think
I agree
that's,
with that.
yeah, right. Easily top 3. And he's like, "No, I got to get out of here."
But so all of that adds up to something is rotten in Denmark. And it started last season. And they could never quite get their way out of it. Florida had to be the dumbest team in the history of football, and multiple times to lose that football game late in the season. LSU's a mess, and the national media seems to have woken up to that fact. Obviously, after this one, and a lot of people now saying they don't expect Edo to be the coach at LSU next season. I'm not convinced he even gets halfway through this season. And there's some other reasons for that. Okay. Some things going on outside of the football program that, if those things drop the way that we think they will, there are several scandals in play. LSU's not going to hesitate. And
No.
because that's their out. They'll save themselves $21 million. They'll be able to
Right.
fire with cause, and Edo will be gone. And I think there's a lot of people down there, Scott Woodward included, who will be very happy to see that happen. Okay.
Yep.
And so that brings us to something else. All right. And we're a little late in talking about this, but it's relevant because of what happened in the Rose Bowl. And that is really what's in our wheelhouse, which is coaching contracts and the extension that Jimbo Fisher got. He's been, what, a week and a half now? onto
Yeah.
his contract. Okay, going from the 10-year, $75 million initial contract, which had 6 seasons left, and pivoting to a new 10-year at $9 million per. A huge, huge commitment on behalf of A&M, and there are so many layers to this.
So
All right,
many.
and
Yeah.
you're going to get to just start walking through them. Okay. But again, the news came out, and the talking heads in college football, the curmudgeons of college football, there's a small cadre of them who specialize in hating the sport that they cover. Okay. And those guys in particular seem to hate Jimbo Fisher, the Jimbo Fishers of the world. Okay.
Yeah.
And of course, they
Whatever that
came a
means.
knocking, and they had to chime in on what is A&M doing? What's the point of all of this? Casey, what is the point of renewing this deal and giving this man more money?
Well, the point is, you want this guy to be here long term. You don't want him to go anywhere else. And paying a great coach like Jimbo Fisher is cheap, and firing dudes after 4 years and paying massive buyouts is very expensive. And we've said this over and over and over again. I've got a graphic I've tweeted out. You want to go through it? What?
No, I'm just saying many times we've covered this, right?
Yes. You know, I I love it when you talk about, okay, you paid them 6 million a year for 4 years, whatever. Then you paid them $20 million to go away, whatever the buyout is, and you average that money out over the course of their tenure. It starts to get very expensive. You have a guy like Willie Taggart that was supposedly an upgrade over Jimbo when he left Florida State, right? Because which is a take people only had because they were mad that Jimbo would leave them in the
They're
lurch,
just
right?
sad.
They're
They
sad.
weren't really mad. They were just sad.
Yeah, Taggart, you paid $4.4 million to Oregon to hire him away. You paid him $10 million in salary for 2 seasons. Then you paid $18 million to fire him after 2 seasons. With so a 2 season average payout of $16.2 million, far
Right.
less than the seven point
Right.
five million a year that we paid Jimbo, and now it's gone to nine and a half, whatever. And you see this play out all the time. Charlie Strong, his 3 year average was almost 10. Tom Herman's 4 year average was also almost 10. Chad Morris over in Arkansas, who only lasted 2 seasons, also almost $10 million a season. All
Right.
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 Scott Frost, who's now probably on the hot seat, if you try to get rid of him after this year, it's going to be over $9 million a year to fire him. If you think you have the guy, pay him.
Yes.
You've
And
got
that's
to
the
pay
bottom line.
him.
That's the
Yeah.
bottom line here. Is
And
that
think,
here's what
yeah.
A&M decided they've seen enough. We have the guy.
Hmm.
Okay. And I love the analogy that Billy Lucci has used. A&M is building a moat around their football program.
Hmm.
Okay. Around Jimbo Fisher and their football program. I felt like this move was all about messaging. Okay. It was about uh, reestablishing or reaffirming the commitment that A&M is ready to make to win and to win big. And I don't think Jimbo Fisher or his agent were knocking at the door. I think this was 100% the athletic director Ross Bjork, the board of regents, the president of the university, the you know the other guys that run the system coming together and saying, guys, he's the man, he's the one that's going to get this done. Let's lock this in. Let's tell everybody out there that we are 100% committed to doing whatever it takes to win and win big on this campus, not just in football, because we're going to get to that, but everything, right? You just saw what A&M did. They went out and got Buzz, okay? And I do believe that's going to work out for us, okay? We lost a year. Okay? I think it's going to work out really well.
Yeah.
Then they went
Sure.
out and said, what we've done in baseball is nowhere near good enough. We're going to go out to get the very best that we can. Okay, we're going to do what we did with Jimbo by going and getting Schloss. Okay, and A&M is about to go out and ask the big money donors to fork over a lot of cash and invest in this program. And they're going to go on a facility bonanza like college football has never seen. Okay, I think that's what their intent is. And if you're going to go do that, you're not going to go knock on those doors and say, "Hey, Mr. Big Money Donor, I need $50 million," without having Jimbo Fisher as the centerpiece of that effort. You're not going to allow those guys to say, "Hey, that's all great, but what's the plan?" Because what happens when an Ed O loses his job and Scott Woodward, who's he going to pick up the phone and call first? What's the risk? You tell me you've got that guy and you've got him locked down, I give you your $50 million. And I really do feel like people nationally have no clue about what's
No.
going on at A&M and what that commitment level is about to be. I feel like this contract extension was step one. It was step one. Step two is going to blow their freaking minds. And
Yeah.
when they in step three start layering the wins on top of that, and I think only then, when they see the big picture, they're going to go, "Wow, man, those dudes down there had some vision. They had
Hmm.
vision." And right now to them it looks foolish. I don't think it's foolish at all. I think it's the price of admission to taking a program that has historically underachieved its expectations and getting it to where we ultimately think it was.
Hmm.
So
No, I
kudos to
think you're
Jimbo
right.
and the program.
Yeah. And I've seen some crazy things out there from some of the pundits. I saw, was it Stuart Mandel this week that actually said, boy, after the UCLA result out there for LSU, now we know why we gave them an extension, right? Because I know who they'll call first over in
Right.
Baton Rouge,
Which,
right?
back it up a week, what was Mandel doing? He was taking shots
Mandel
at
was,
us saying,
yeah,
what are we going to pay? What are they going to pay this guy when he actually wins something?
right.
Well, what was the answer to that? Whatever it
Exactly.
takes,
Whatever we
whatever we
want.
want. Right. So, it's funny that 7 days later, it suddenly dawns on this guy
Right.
that, oh, this was preemptive. Well,
Yeah.
yes, you moron. There was plenty of people telling you that at the
Yeah.
time. You
Yeah.
chose to ignore it. So,
Yeah.
that's the name of the game. These guys, they do what they do to get attention. Um, although maybe I'm giving them too much credit. Maybe they don't realize it.
I don't think so. I don't think he did realize it. I'm dead serious. I don't think it dawned on him at all, which was what made it so funny. I was like, now we know. No, now, Stuart, you know. We knew 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
And and I say this all the time. A&M breaks people's brains when it comes to this stuff. Like they don't. It's like they cease to think. I saw even Peter Burns, who I think does a great job for the SEC network. I
Right.
really do. I think he's a good guy. What did he say the other day? Gosh, but they already gave him $75 million to win a championship, which is
Yeah. No,
completely
Peter.
insane. That's
It
not how
is.
this works at all. We gave
Right.
him $75 million to hire him, to lure
To
him
come
away.
here.
Yes.
Right. To do what everybody in college football, the talking head said couldn't be done, that we were crazy for even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Well, we did what it took,
Yeah.
right? It took this pot of money. And by the way, it wasn't a money whipping. Okay. Jimbo Fisher is money. Everybody wants more money, right? Okay. But the $75 million wasn't what Jimbo Fisher goes, I can have $75 million? No.
No, it was the
What
10
he said
years.
was, he said, oh my God, those guys down there are willing to pay me $75 million. And they're telling me they're going to do X, Y, and Z. And if I dream up anything else, they'll add it to the list. It was about the commitment. And that's what it took to get his attention,
Yes.
to come down here, right? Now, come run our football team. We're not paying you $75 million to win a national championship. We're paying you $75 million to demonstrate the commitment we're willing to make to win a national title
Yeah.
and to get to the top. And we're going to keep doing it. And what's really going to blow their minds is if he does have a great season, is we're going to up it again.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go to 10 million a year. Okay? Maybe 11, maybe 12.
I
Maybe
have
we'll
no
do
doubt
just
about that.
enough. Just enough to get that dude to a 10-year, $100 million deal. It'll be beautiful. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be awesome. And I have to say, when that $75 million was signed, we got a lot of crap from our friends, and we were like, no, it's going to look like a bargain in a few years. And
Yes,
it
we did
does.
say that.
$7.5 million a year is not that much money anymore. And another thing that I am so sick of hearing from the media is why he had 7 years left. So it's not like you needed to demonstrate this commitment because no one thought he was going to leave because you had 7 years left. And I'm here to tell everybody, no, he didn't. Okay, you realize that clock has already passed. He's going to coach for A&M this year. Okay, so he only has 6 years left at $7.5 million a year. Well, guess what? That's essentially the contract that what's his face in Florida just signed, and I'm
Dan
legitimately
Mullen.
Dan Mullen,
Dan
blanking
Mullen.
on his name.
It's the
That's the
Dan Mullen
contract he
deal.
just signed, is 6 years for $7.5 million. So that's not a big hurdle anymore. And we saw
Right.
where the winds were going. We knew, like, in a few years, $7.5 million in the SEC especially is not going to seem like that much money.
Right.
And at the end of this year, it will not be that much money. It's an extremely low bar for any team that wants Jimbo to clear.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Anyway.
get over yourselves. Okay. Sit back. Everybody, we got this. It's our money. We can do whatever the hell we want with it. It's not my money.
Damn. So
It's
that's
not my
right.
money or your
Exactly.
money.
More importantly, it's not our money.
It's not our money, which makes
And
it
two,
that much easier to swallow, baby. I need that Powerball.
Makes it better.
I need
to be
that
honest.
Powerball.
No, I don't want it to be my money at all. I want it to be someone else's money.
We'll just
forever.
stay poor. Poor podcasters who just do this because we're bored. That's
right.
how we'll just roll that way. We got no responsibility. If it goes well, we claim it. If it goes sideways, well, that's why it's called the Meltdown Show, folks.
That's right.
And with that, we're going to wrap this episode. We'll cut it. We'll post it. Thanks for all of the new followers at Meltdown Ags out there on Twitter. This will be up on your favorite podcast app sometime this week, and it'll be out there on YouTube for everybody to enjoy. So have a great week. Beat the hell out of Colorado. I'll be in Denver for the football game, so I doubt we're doing a post-game live, but we'll do it just like this. We'll do it early in the week, and after that way we get to watch the tape. I love watching the tape.
I love it.
Okay? Watch that beautiful offensive line